It's Wednesday, January 24th, one day after this historic and monumental decision by Justice Mosely here in Canada, overturning Justin Trudeau's Emergency Measures Act of 2 years ago. I'm here at the courthouse with Legally Purdy, formerly known as Miss Cannabis Court on Twitter. And it's an important day, and all Canadians ought to celebrate that we now still have a glimmer of hope for the rule of law and freedom in our country. And it's interesting, a little bit of a note, Justice Mosely indicated very strong and clear language that Justin Trudeau acted in violation to the law, ultra vires, that he was not transparent, that his measures were unreasonable, and that he had all the means and mechanisms in the law to deal with any protests and did not need, was not justified for the Emergency Act. And all the subsequent horrendous police physical violence and abuse on the protesters. But what's interesting about Justice Mosely, he's a judge who's called a supernumerary judge. So he's retired. He can no longer advance in his career, and he can no longer be penalized. So there was no consequence for Justice Mosely to be truthful and honest. And that is the first time we've seen this in Canada in 4 years in the many constitutional battles. But there's been additional and important actions and activities on the freedom movement in the last couple of days. Yesterday here in Ottawa, the same day that Justice Mosely ruled, the court withdrew their charges against Dana Lee. On Monday, a lady that goes by the name Octomom on Twitter had her charges withdrawn in Windsor. And what's really important about this was she pushed and made the Crown cough up the evidence, the disclosure that they were sitting on, that they were hiding, and preventing the courts from seeing the full extent of the skullduggery and the corruption of the Crown in Canada, and especially in Ontario. She filed what's called a Stinchcomb application and had the redacted disclosure, the unredacted. And there was the piece de resistance, because in the redacted disclosure, it was hiding the Crown's complicity, the Crown's illegal behavior in Windsor, where the Crown was directing the police to lay charges. Now, for people who are not aware of the nuances of law, this is absolutely reprehensible. The Crown is supposed to be a neutral arbiter and it's supposed to be a body that brings forth all the evidence and is not party to the conviction. But here they are, actually directing the police to arrest the protesters in Windsor. Of course, this would be akin to a banana republic where politicians and the courts are directing the police to apprehend and arrest their political opponents. Well, doesn't that just sound like what Canada has become? But Octomom persevered, determined, and as soon as that disclosure was unredacted and the Crown was caught being engaged in corrupt activities, they then withdrew the charges and said, it is not in the public interest. Bullshit. It was not in the Crown's interest, because had they continued to proceed, they would have been opening themselves up, that they would have had to been testifying and being cross-examined by the defense, and their skullduggery would have been exposed, and their oath of the solicitor's oath, the Crown Attorney's oath, would both be shown to have been violated. They would have been disbarred and subject to criminal prosecution. It wasn't in the public's interest that they withdrew. They got their hands caught in the cookie jar big time. And just like everyone else, stand firm. If you've been charged, stand firm. We see if you can expose the corrupt behavior of the Crowns, they will withdraw the charges. I'll be filing various Stinchcombe applications and O'Connor applications. In my defense, I have hundreds of pages of redacted evidence that has been provided to me. Black pages. They don't want me to know who was doing what behind the scenes. We're going to make them cough it up. And but for all Canadians, you should, and everyone who was in Ottawa, and everyone who attended the No More Lockdown rally, pat yourself on the back and pat your colleagues on the back, because we stood up.
That's right. And
we're winning this battle. There's more battles ahead, but we're going to win them. And we're not only going to win the battle, we're going to win this war on our culture in Canada. So stay tuned. Make sure you support our independent media like Legally Purdy. Our mainstream media are a bunch of cucks and refuse to come down and cover the real stories that are having an impact on Canada. And if we don't stand firm and stand tall, stand strong, our children and our grandchildren will pay the price if we don't stand for freedom today. Thanks for joining me. We've got lots more to do. Make sure you help out our independent media and help out all these people, big and small, from coast to coast, who are still fighting against this legal machine and monster called the justice system.
Thank you.